So it's my pleasure now to sort of open it up to questions. So you can, oh, don't show them the sample question. Shh. Yeah. So there's sample questions in case you don't come up with anything. But if you do, which I'm hoping you will, they'd love to receive your questions, and we appreciate your time and attention. So I saw a hand shot up in the back over there. Yes.
Thank you so much. That was really great.
Thank you.
Very exciting work y'all are doing. One thing I was thinking about is traditionally the academy really devalues communicating with a broad public, and the academy does not have a good way to reward communicating with a broad public. And this idea of translating academic material for non-academics is devalued, looked down upon, etc., very traditionally. So one, I'm very excited that y'all are doing this and raising the profile of this
Wasn't
type of
sure where
work.
you were going with that. So good. Thank
Yeah.
you. I was like, no.
And I
Yes.
totally value it too.
Thank you.
So, but the other question I had is more, what have you all learned about how to change the institution of academia in
Ooh.
order for them to value this type of work more wholeheartedly and to actually, start granting tenure and start, recognizing
Somebody needs
research
to give me a
scholars
job first before I can start.
according to this type of work.
So it's a big question. And I'll say I'd love to say that the accolades that we've gotten are a nod that things are changing. If I make a comparison to some of the work and opportunities that surround all of the accidental DEI work that many women and very many people of color do, in addition to all the things that they do on the academic side that will get them tenure, you know, it's a huge question. I when we got that leadership award from the American Association of College and Universities, a lot of organizations that do higher education nod at and encourage those things, but many of us who are doing this work are sort of operating on the fringes alongside the running towards tenure. It's a tough question. I if I was to say, yeah, I don't know how to answer it. It's a tough question. I'd love to be part of the conversation, as my faculty reminds me, after I get tenure.
I think it's me. Oh, hi.
Hi.
So exciting. I'm gonna pick your brain later. And thank you to the students. Just hearing from you was really wonderful. And I'm going to ask a question that may seem a little unfair, but I want you to take it as my excitement. So rather than dwell on all of the really amazing, awesome things that you all just talked about and are involved in, I'm going to sort of build off of your next steps, sort of where my question's going. And so I'm wondering if the lab has ever considered writing with community members. So I was really thinking about how you centered diversity, right? Noting the number of women and folks of color and right that aspect of that mission. So just hearing your stories of how you all are empowered is utterly brilliant and really important, as well as the hundreds of people that are involved, et cetera. But it of course stands to reason that as all Berkeley grads, you're also uniquely privileged in many ways. And so I'm wondering then about the question of sort of this intervention within technology and sort of the questions of who, not only sort of who owns, as we've been talking about, who controls, who shapes, right, who uses, right? So I kept thinking about the power that you actually wield in this work. And so hence the question about writing, about kind of taking that diversity mission further and thinking about writing with community members. So therefore further democratizing the use of these tools. And that also, when you have the slide where all of you were talking about the different projects, something just sort of struck me in the language of privacy, which is I was thinking about the concerns for individual privacy rights, quite individualized.
Mhm.
And I was thinking that privacy is in some ways sort of this proxy for safety, and especially safety from harm. And we were thinking about harm in an earlier panel. And so I was wondering, again, kind of building on this idea of thinking about communities and further democratization. It also made me think about whether we can conceptualize ways of working um, of the potential of moving from privacy to a language, so moving from individual privacy to a language of community safety. Kind of
So I'm happy to take a first stab, and then if anyone else wants to jump in. So what I will start by saying is the WikiEd Foundation hosts thousands of these courses. Some of them are at universities, some of them are in the community. I know ones that Savannah has worked on are in associations, correct? Are in associations. So our project is focused on and centered in a university. I have not at this time been called to move outside of a university yet. I suspect my committee, with the job market looming, will not want me to do that just yet after tenure. But I think it's brilliant, and I know that the WikiEd Foundation is trying to get more localized communities and associations to take on this work as well. I think it's brilliant, and I know at least one person in the audience, raise your hand, stand up and be recognized, runs a Wikipedia program here. And her students actually edited a page that was created by one of my students, which is incredible. So I will say that my research work does not go into the safety space. But the cool thing is with the students that join us is the work that they do is at the intersection of privacy and whatever they're interested in. So can we put that slide back up with all the projects? So we've had all sorts of projects. Our students sort of focus in on some of the ones that were interesting to them. We've had things like guerrilla art. So let's see, I'm trying to find, there was one we did on prisons at one point that's on here somewhere. Social data revolution. So what's represented here are the intersection of me at the very basic level, privacy, cybersecurity, and whatever they want. So if I got a whole group of students that were interested in a topic out, this could go, police hacking, it could go in any direction. So the directions that you're seeing right now are just where the interest was. But I'm with you, and I think it's fantastic. We actually have a project on campus, American Cultures. Don't they do something on prisons? What is it? Grab the mic. You want to grab the mic?
I worked with some classes at through the American Culture Center, mostly related to the election and getting, more accurate knowledge about different propositions out on Wikipedia. So that was one way that we addressed that.
And what I would say is that with the dashboard and what Wiki Education puts together, this is one direction. You can, with a couple hours a week, you can take students in a completely different direction. Yeah, great question. Thank you. Yes.
Oh, yeah, sorry. We'll go next. Two quick questions. Number one, I noticed there's a spike in fall of 21 with the number of entries.
Oh, let's take a look.
Yeah, and I'm just sort of curious why that was, and then another quick follow-up.
Let's see. So fall 21.
Okay.
Do we have a much larger?
There's a histogram. I think.
Oh yeah, go
next
back
slide.
to that. Ash,
No,
you
no, no,
wanna-
the other direction, I think.
Ash, you want to take that? I can tell you we used to do a very selective process. So and many of the students participated in this. We'd sit down, we'd interview everybody, and then we realized, you know what? Anybody that wants to do this, we just open the doors. So during the pandemic, we admitted every student that applied because students were looking for a community. And after that, we kind of kept doing that. So if we had a student who was a freshman to a senior, and if they wanted to be part of it, then they were. Yeah.
That's
So
all.
Ash, do you know what that was?
Oh, that was me.
Oh, that's the number of
full
annotations.
2020, so it's reflective of the amount of students who are working on it. So for all of our bibliographies, they needed to have a minimum of 20 academic sources. And so just based on the number of students, there was a lot more annotations generated that semester.
Okay. And then the second question has to do with, there was a great quote from the late Roger Ebert where he says, doing research on the internet is like using a library assembled by pack rats and vandalized nightly. And one of the things I imagine as you're putting these entries, I know there are people who go around sometimes changing things for certain points of view. Maybe it's political, maybe it's science. And then there are others who just put, crap in for fun. Like someone put on my page, I played myself in an episode of the TV show BJ and the Bear in 1979. Okay, I didn't, but I don't know where that came from. It was funny, but right? So how often do you have to do this? How often are you addressing this, or where you see there are people who are just either for fun or for malicious purposes out trying to redo, or rewrite whatever you're doing?
So, and I'm happy for the students to weigh in on this as well. But there's a whole machine that is much more extensive than the seven of us. So there are dedicated Wikipedians all over the world, including folks that are professional that worked for the Wikimedia Foundation and Wikimedia that commit to editing and making sure that the information is accurate. Is it absolutely accurate? Absolutely not. All the time. But what I will say is that sometimes battles happen on pages, and you'll notice on some pages that there's a lock. So that if something is extremely contentious, then only very advanced and long-standing Wikipedia editors will be allowed to edit it. There's a colleague of mine who's if you remind me, I'll pass along her paper, who recently produced a paper about the battles going on behind the scenes on web pages about the Holocaust. There was a very dedicated group of people based in Poland that were trying to spread misinformation and deny the Holocaust, and that there are these ongoing battles that happen on the pages. And these things happen. Sometimes our students run into people with nefarious intentions in the same way that any of us can anywhere else. But I think it's a step in the right direction, because there are a lot of people for whom this is one of their main sources of information. And if we can add a little bit more rigor and truth, especially on topics that lend towards conspiracy theory, or where a bit of information might help you to decide that, maybe I don't want to buy a teddy bear for my child that connects to the internet. It's something we're proud of. Yeah. I saw another question in front, over the
Yeah,
corner. Yes.
Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation, all of you.
Thank you.
You sort of kicked it off talking about the wisdom of crowds, and of course, that anecdote about the crowd guessing the weight of the ox is such a good uh, analogy for the moment. But also in the book, they talk about ways that collective intelligence could be undermined. And one of the examples was, instead of an ox, because I guess you can't always bring an ox to class, they had a big jar of jelly beans.
I was thinking jelly beans when I said it.
and
Yes.
had the participants guess the number of jelly beans. And if you stop there, then the collective intelligence is high. But then if you give them the option to go to someone in the room who they consider like an expert, look at their guess that they hazarded, and then give the individuals a chance to change that their guess, then the collective intelligence gets lowered.
Interesting. Yeah.
And I guess I was wondering, with Wikipedia, the biggest jar of jelly beans there is, right? Like how was did you experience moments where sort of collective intelligence of the crowd was sort of shifted through different kind of online behaviors or even behaviors among the group?
That's it's an interesting question, and I would say um, I am not a scholar of Wikipedia, so that's not where my research expertise falls. And that same paper that I just mentioned on sort of the battles going on behind the scenes might be a good reference, and I'm happy to pass that along. Yeah. There are lots of great pieces that have been written by people that study Wikipedia. Yes.
Okay, so to Dahlia's point about the community, so in the Wikipedia assignments that I have my students do, I've tried repeatedly to have them go global. One of the, I think, drawbacks to Wikipedia, and it maybe isn't, is that you have to have a verifiable source that you're using. Unfortunately, we come from a place of privilege, and if you think about in the area I work with, which is Africa, there is not a lot of research articles and journals that you can easily tap into, but it is a good exercise in open access, because there are a lot of open access journals and things that are available. So it's kind of difficult to get someone in a local community, because Wikipedia doesn't want an oral history of something.
Yeah.
They want a citation to something. So that becomes a roadblock, in my opinion, to making it a real global community effort. A point to keep in mind for everyone is that one is like report writing. So it's really good because the student has to not use really kind of their own voice. You have to report the facts with a lot of citations. So that's often difficult to get a student to understand that, you're not writing your opinion, you're writing on a fact, right? Which is a good practice. The other thing to keep in mind is other than social media apps like, Facebook or Instagram that you can access on the internet, Wikipedia is the second highest item accessed. And again, coming from a place of privilege, when you think about the impact that all of you have had on people that you will never see
Mhm.
and information that you've given them, that you will never know the impact that it had. I just hope that you take away how important what you've done really is, and that all of the other students that are behind you working on this understand that you have added to the global information and you have empowered people in places of the world where only Wikipedia is the only place they can go for information. And I applaud you and I thank you so much for doing that.
Thank you. One of my favorite examples of that is one of our students, Yashin, wrote the page for social profiling. And for quite a while, and I'm not sure if this is still true, if you Google social profiling, what pops up is something that was written by a 19-year-old. So it's yeah. I also joke with my students that they're often more widely read than their faculty. I mentioned this to a professor in my department. He says, "Yeah, only 800 people have read my book. I'm a bestseller." I was like, "So yeah."
Well, following up with what Cindy had to say, I'm also a librarian, so I appreciated it was Ankita who talked about having to learn how to craft searches and doing all these things. It's like, could you make an ad for LIS programs? Like how much fun that was, and that keyword searching in Google is not like the be all and end all of things, because I'm old enough to have remembered when you had to pay by the minute to do these kinds of searches in databases. And so the whole point was to craft a search to get the best results in the quickest time. So anyway, I really appreciated that. But I was also thinking before you mentioned it that you could not have succeeded at your project if you did not have the advantage of the UC Berkeley libraries and all of their resources. UB is great, but we probably don't have nearly as deep a breadth of content accessible here. Even though way back before I ever came to work here, UB did want to be the Berkeley of the East, right?
I call Berkeley the Buffalo of the West.
Yes, yes. So anyway, we had more protests in Vietnam, et cetera. So anyway, but I did want to just again applaud you for showing the value of librarians, and maybe not everybody appreciates that, but hopefully Savannah, as you're in the program,
Library
will
science.
be able to right, you know, talk about how librarians really can do a lot of great things, and the library programs do need a lot more diversity of type of people to enter the field, because really I work behind the scenes. I don't really get to find out all the things I do that help people connect to electronic resources. I certainly learned that very well in the pandemic years, where even my colleagues didn't know how to get to some of the stuff as well as my team did. But anyway, thank you very much. It's very interesting.
Thank you. And I'll tell you, Corliss, this project could not exist without Corliss Lee, who is our American Cultures librarian at UC Berkeley. She does a training for the students every semester on library skills.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the wonderful panel. Keep it up. You guys are doing an amazing job. And let's give it up for librarians as well, who are under attack everywhere.